Good afternoon. Can you hear me now? Can you just all give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, please? Wonderful.
Perfect,
Thank
Sanjit.
you. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome you all. Good afternoon, and welcome to webinar number 2, which is our series of 5 webinars on the gender-based violence seminars that we are holding this beautiful Saturday afternoon. And I would like to take you straight to Catherine, who will introduce you to KCA and what the Kenyan Canadian Association is all about. Before that, I would like to mention that we are being live streamed on Zoom with our audience, as well as YouTube and Facebook and the KCA website live stream. Welcome, and over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Sanjit. I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar on behalf of KCA, and we are going to read the land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which KCA operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this place is still the home to many indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Kenyan Canadian Association is a federal nonprofit organization that seeks to address the affected Canadian, especially those of the African origin and the racialized individuals. KCA also focuses on implementing programs offering services to newcomers and marginalized groups residing in Canada to improve their well-being and socioeconomic status. KCA has 8 programs. We have the Women and Gender Affairs program. We have the Newcomers and Settlement. We have the Socioeconomic Empowerment, Sports Recreation, Health and Wellness, Children and Youth Outreach, Research, Education and Careers. And the last one is Seniors Outreach. KCA has a board of directors headed by Ephraim Mwaura as our president. I'm the secretary. We have Raphael as the board chair. We have Fatma Nadia as the director of socioeconomic. We have Esther McCory is the director of education. We have Sanjit KAUR is the director of women. And we have Farah is the director of, Farah is the director of communications. And the last director is Terry Otlib, who is the seniors director. We have regional chairs. We have the GTA Central, GTA West, we have GTA East, we have Northern Ontario, we have Nova Scotia, we have Newfoundland, Manitoba, and New Brunswick. We have webinar series that are coming up. In September, this is the second one. And we are having a next one in September 25th, 2021. That will be the gender-based violence, navigating the legal justice system. The next one will be October 16th, media's role in ending gender-based violence. We have the November 6th webinar, which will be gender equality and United Nations Women's He for She. The Women and Gender Affairs Initiative is under SANJIT KAUR, and I will hand it over for her to introduce this.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, as you heard, my name is Sanjit Kaur. I am the Director of Women and Gender Affairs, as well as your host for this webinar this afternoon. Some of the programs that come under my portfolio include Women's Settlement Support, the Girl Child Empowerment, we have Women Economic Security, UN Women He for She, as well as the Gender-Based Violence. And under the 5th program today, we have a series of 5 webinars. This is the 2nd one. Please take note of the dates for the upcoming webinars. We are also being live streamed. Welcome to the audience on YouTube, Facebook, and Zoom. As we go through the panelists, I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. Please feel free to put them in the chat. And we will have a Q&A time at the end of our session. So we hope to get through as many questions as possible and address everybody's questions. I would like to go straight away and introduce our first panelist for this afternoon. SUCHIRA BANERJEE is the Director of Client Services with Victim Services of PAOLA. SUCHIRA has over 15 years experience, both internationally as well as in Canada, having worked extensively with violence, trauma, and survivors of intimate partner violence, childhood sexual abuse, and human trafficking. She's an experienced and trained therapist using various modalities, some of which include CBT and narrative therapy. Welcome, SUCHIRA. I look forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Thank you, Sanjit, for that lovely introduction. So I'm probably going to start sharing my screen, and then I could, as Sanjit said, introduce the agency and introduce the work that we do, which is quite a relevant topic, I think, for the work that Victim Services of PAOLA does. So before I get started, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Kenyan Canadian Association for inviting us here on this panel with all the other esteemed guests. It's really nice to have an opportunity to share the stage with people who are actually working frontline in similar context of services. So as Sanjit said, that I am the Director of Client Services here at Victim Services of PAOLA. We are based in Brampton. However, we do serve Brampton and Mississauga. So I'm going to get started. So Victim Services of PAOLA, we've been in the community from 1986. We are a not-for-profit charitable agency that provides practical and emotional support to victims of crime, trauma, and tragic circumstances, largely, as I said, in Brampton and Mississauga. However, because when I go and talk about our services, you will see that the services are, one of our core services are phone-based. We are never restricted to just Brampton and Mississauga. We do get clients all over GTA. We have clients who call us sometimes from Toronto. They probably would know about us from somebody who's got services from us and is in Ottawa. So we get calls from all around. But of course, like I said, because of the PAOLA region focus, a bulk of the clients belong to Brampton and Mississauga. We work very closely in partnership with PAOLA Regional Police. So I would want to emphasize that Victim Services of PAOLA as a sector basically sits in the structure of the police system. However, we are not the police, but we do work very closely in partnership with them. So we do share a common physical space in terms of our office. We have access to incident reports that police attends. And as you would look at the data, 80% of our referrals come from PAOLA Regional Police. But while I say that, we also have a significant number of clients who reach out to us directly, or community agencies and partnerships that we have collaborations with, where clients are sent to us directly, or they get our crisis line number directly. So in 2020-21, we did support over 12,000 clients. Over 80% of our referrals came from PAOLA Regional Police. Over 5,200 referrals were made outside the agency to other community supports. So just like the name suggests, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the services which kind of form the core context of victim services. One of our core services is the crisis line. and the number is right here. I'm hoping that the slide deck or the presentation would be shared with the audience in some format, so you'll also have the number if you need. So it's really interesting that we are invited to this forum, because this kind of is the work that we do. And we play a very specialized role in the journey of recovery and healing for victims or survivors of family and intimate partner violence. So Victim Services of PEEL, we at the agency see ourselves as the emotional first responders. So just like you have first responders where police does the investigation at the crime level, or the fire goes when there's a, the fire marshals are there when there's a fire, or paramedics in a medical emergency, we see ourselves more like the emotional first responders in cases of family or intimate partner violence. Now, the reason why I say first responders is because often when survivors and clients connect with us, they probably haven't spoken to anybody in terms of social services except for their interaction with police. So often these clients have never had a run-in with the enforcement, like the law enforcement system. They've probably taken the courage to get support, and this is kind of the first point of support that they are getting. So a bulk of the work that we do on our 24-hour crisis line, the line operates 7 days a week and 365 days a year. Few things that we offer to survivors on the line is definitely emotional de-escalation and stabilization. So when I say that, we have survivors who come to us on a continuum. So, generally when you look at pictures or images or, PR material, which talks about gender-based violence, it often shows people in a certain format, but it's not true for people who actually experience it. People could be on a continuum depending on the way they are surviving the trauma over years. So we sometimes might have a client who's extremely emotionally distraught because her partner was arrested or his partner was arrested. Probably the person has nobody else financially to support them. The person is a new immigrant in the country, doesn't know the language very well, has difficulties because they have young children. So we have clients at that one end of the continuum. We also have clients who probably have been in the country for some time, who know the system, but still need the support because probably this is the first time something like this has happened to them. So a big piece of the work that we do is emotional de-escalation on the crisis line. The second big piece of the work that we do at the crisis level is safety planning, because a lot of the clients who we interact with on our lines do have, histories of significant amount of trauma. Also, we do have very high-risk cases sometimes getting referred to us directly from the police, where the person who, as in the alleged abuser, probably is out and about, has not been arrested, has access to guns, has a history of violence. So we do a lot of safety planning. We also have a specialized high-risk program, which I'll talk a little bit about, which actually supports not just the safety planning bit, but actually supports victims with lock changes, safety assessments of their home. So I will give a little bit more detail on that on my next slide. But safety planning for us is not just going over the plan and coming up with an individualized plan. We also have actual pragmatic things that we put in place in order for the person to feel safe in their own homes. We work out of the Brampton Courthouse. So we do have a presence in the bail court system, and we support our survivors and our clients with information from the bail court system as well. Because generally when police is involved, and if somebody is arrested, they either get released from a police station or they are put up for a bail, and we follow both ends of that continuum and support clients with conditions, how they can keep themselves safe, what happens if the person breaches those conditions. So we do that information piece as well. Another big piece of the work we do on the crisis line is assessing the needs of the client and making sure that they are referred to the right resources. Because the way I see it is that this is the first step for any survivor towards their journey of recovery. So if this step has a strong foundation, the crisis step has a strong foundation, if the experience that the survivor has is a positive one, if the survivor is exactly transferred or referred to agencies that will meet their needs, the chances that they would recover or the chances that they would transition into a safer life is much higher. So a big piece of the work that Victim Services does is also referring to both internal programs, which I'll talk about a little bit, and external supports. We have a number of external collaborations with agencies in the region of Peel as well as outside. And we do have options of making bomb transfers to some of these agencies, depending upon the needs of the clients. So looking at the support pyramid for victim services, as you can see, the bulk of our work falls at the bottom of the pyramid, which is crisis and high-risk support. So under that, we have our 24-hour crisis line, and we have something called as the Victim Quick Response Program. So the Ministry of Attorney General, which is one of the biggest funding sources for victim services as a sector, they have something called as a Victim Quick Response Program. As the name suggests, the program provides immediate assistance for certain needs like safety assessments of the home, trauma counseling. If, say, it has been a brutal crime scene and a cleanup is required, a cleanup. Sometimes we could have fatalities where funeral costs are involved and the program can support with that. The program, of course, has eligibility criteria. There are timeline eligibilities, there are physical jurisdiction eligibilities, but more or less this program tries to provide immediate financial assistance in a number of areas, especially for clients who are surviving high-risk situations or surviving intimate partner or family violence. So that kind of forms the biggest bulk of our work. We also, of course, not just offer the crisis support on the phone, but we also have in-person. Of course, in-person attendances have taken a hit right now due to the pandemic, but we are in a process of restarting, just like I'm sure many of my colleagues here on this panel are looking at restarting, going back to their respective agencies physically. We are also looking at that at this point of time. The second bulk of our work is the bail court support. Like I said, that because we work so closely in partnership with police, we do also play a very critical role when it comes to helping the person navigate, especially through the criminal justice system, especially at the bail court level. So a lot of our clients who fall under that big bracket at the bottom also do need the bail court support, which is the second bulk of our work. And the third, and maybe a very specialized niche of our work, is we have a few programs in-house. So we have something called as a transitional housing program, which is meant for women victims of family violence, intimate partner violence. Regions across the province of Ontario and many other provinces as well offer subsidized housing on a priority basis to survivors of violence, especially family and intimate partner violence. So we have a program that actually supports clients to navigate that system, apply for housing, make a transitional plan to safety and all of that. So that's one. We also have something called as the South Asian Family Enrichment Program, which kind of fits in, especially with the ethnic demographic that we serve, which is one of the bigger demographics in Peel. Peel is pretty diverse, but this program has specifically caters to a certain ethnicity in Peel. And again, the program has cultural as well as linguistic, inclusiveness. The person who runs the program speaks multiple South Asian languages, has a cultural understanding, tries to operate from that understanding to support women from a case management point of view. So again, it's a little bit of a longer program than crisis. And then the third big collaboration that Victim Services has in the region of Peel is something called as the Safe Center of Peel. So Safe Center of Peel is a hub of 15 different agencies here in Peel that specifically cater to multiple levels of needs for victims of family and intimate partner violence. Safe Center of Peel is located at 60 West Drive here in Brampton, and police is a part of this collaboration. So Peel Regional Police has something called as an intimate partner violence unit, and the unit physically sits out of the Safe Center. So it kind of is based on the family justice model, which is very prominently practiced in the United States, but we do have some models here in Alberta. We have a few hub models also in the York region. We have one, I think, in Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken, but we kind of have a similar mode of a hub-based service model where Victim Services is the crisis partner. So we support again in our specialty in this hub. Of course, as I mentioned, the goal for crisis support at our end is 24/7 crisis intervention. We have experienced crisis intervention counselors available 24/7. A client can call up at any given point of time and request for support, information, emotional support, safety planning needs. As I said, a multitude of things that they may need when they are in that crisis level of their journey. Most of our referrals, like I said, comes from Peel Regional Police, but we also work very closely with the community. Clients can also self-refer themselves. We try basing our work on 3 important principles: accessibility, empowerment, and dignity. So we make sure that our services are accessible as much as possible. We do have access to something called as the MCIS language services. So at any given point of time, if a client is calling us and English is not their first language, they need language specific services, we are going to be able to get an interpreter on the line with the crisis worker to support the client. Also, we have a very diverse group of staff members as well who speak multiple languages, who come from different ethnic backgrounds themselves and do have that life experience or social location to support victims in the best possible fashion. Of course, we also, even if we support at the crisis level, we do realize that any journey out of an unsafe, abusive environment is never an easy, simple one. It's always full of complexities, ebbs and flows, lots of things which affects that journey. So we always base our work, our crisis support work on the empowerment-based, trauma-based approach. We have clients who would call us, take information about what happened at the bail court, and that's the end of the service. And few years later, we might again have this client call us for the same reason, for the same partner or same relationship. So what I'm trying to probably point out here is that for us, we will support the client where they are. It's not as if, only if you're going to leave the situation, only if you're going to complain things to the police are we going to support. No, as an agency, we are very clear that we will meet the client where the client is. If the client tells us, I'm not ready right now to leave this situation, we are going to safety plan within that situation. Whereas if a client tells us, I'm going to exit, we are going to work with her on those grounds. So we are very clear in our approach when it comes to crisis support that it has to be trauma-based, it has to be anti-oppressive in nature, it has to be anti-racist in nature, and it has to be based on empowerment-based principles that a client is the owner of her story or his story or their story. They know what is best required for them. We are here to support them and make sure that we are reducing the harm, reducing those unsafe situations as much as possible. Some FAQs that people ask us, as I said, we are 24/7. We are a group of paid staff as well as highly trained volunteers who help run the crisis line 24/7. We are located at 180 Derry Road, which is actually a police building. So we work out of the police building. We also do have satellite offices at the Brampton Courthouse and 60 West Drive, the hub like I spoke to you guys about. If you need support from victim services, our crisis line number is right here on the screen. Our number is also often found on the Peel Regional Police officers' business cards. So if you're in the region and if you've had an interaction with law enforcement, you will also find our numbers at the back of their business cards in case you have, you need support or you have something that you want to inquire and you want to call us. These are some of the other ways. That's our website. If anybody ever wants to go in and look more in detail on the services. And I think that gets me to the end of my presentation. Sanjit, if you're okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
Yes, sure. Thank you. SUCHIRA, that was truly very interesting. Very interesting to note that you're just much more than just a crisis line and all the support systems that you have in place for your clients. And the other thing that also, reached out to me was that a client can self-refer. You're not just waiting for someone or for you know to point you in that direction, you can take the step. And I think the most important of what again reached out to me was you work with the client where they are, right? Because many times the client can feel that unless I walk out of this situation, no one is going to pay attention to me or heed or help me, right? I have to make a decision one way or the other. So
absolutely well said, Sanjit. And I think we kind of get mistaken often for that because of our closeness with the police. Of course, police is one of our biggest partners. There's no two ways about that. But at the same time, we are independent of them. So I kind of want to put that message across to the audience out there that, you know, you don't have to be involved with the police to call up victim services. If you are in need, we are here to support you. Whether you have the involvement of law enforcement in some format or not, that's a secondary thing. If you have, we'll support you in that respect. If you don't also, we are a crisis line.
Now we're going to take Q&A at the end, but I do have a quick question here that's come in for you. Do you also get involved when there's cyberbullying involved between partners or outside the partnership?
We do have clients who call us often where cyberbullying is involved. Of course, many of such clients do have police involvement already, where one or the other partners probably have made a complaint and, regional police is involved. However, even if that's not the case, we would work with the client depending upon where they are in terms of doing a safety plan. We might encourage if the bullying is extremely, brutal or dangerous that, okay, you know what, this doesn't look all right. You might want to make a complaint. We might motivate the client to do that, but we are not going to tell that, no, you have to make a complaint. A client is safeguarded by the same confidentiality requirements, just like any other services. Obviously, we all are like, I know we have a number of social service agencies on this panel, and we all are bound by the confidentiality of self-harm, harm to others, and children below the age of 16, where we are mandated, just like any other agency. But just because you're talking to us doesn't mean that your information will be available to police.
Thank you, SUCHIRA. Please stay on with us because I'm sure questions will continue to come in as we are being live streamed on YouTube and Facebook, as well as the Zoom audience.
Thank you, Sanjit.
I would like to move on to our second panelist for today, and PAOLA Gomez is a human rights lawyer and a professor at the Centennial College. She's a member of the PEN Canada's Writers in Exile and involved in causes such as ending violence against women and forced migration, and works with refugees and newcomer communities. Also a winner of many awards, including the recipient of 2008 Amina Malka Award, the 2016 Constance E. Hamilton Human Rights Award from the City of Toronto for her work with refugee women, and the 2018 Champions of Change Award. She is also the co-founder and director of Muse Arts. Welcome, PAOLA, and looking forward to hear what you have to tell us about Muse Arts.
Good afternoon, Sanjit, and thank you so much for this invitation. I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to witness also the important work, not only that your organization is doing, but also learning from the other panelists in this webinar about the work they do. So thank you so much. I feel very grateful for this opportunity. And of course, I want to extend my gratitude and the welcoming to those who are joining us this afternoon. And if it is okay with everybody, I will share what I come here to offer as how from my work and the work of the organization that I co-founded, we do in supporting survivors and their families. But before I go there, and in as a part of my own personal journey, and a journey that I invite everybody to be part of, I would like to have a little space to reflect on the acknowledgement of traditional indigenous territories, recognizing that many of us may be also coming from other lands that were subject to colonization as well. And in that sense, I want to recognize that I am coming from a territory in that is now called Colombia in South America. And that was, of course, impacted by colonization. But when I bring this to our conversation, I would like to continue my personal reflection and invite each one of you to reflect on the land that you are situated and the impact of your relationship to the land and understanding of gender and gender-based violence. How colonization and language have impacted your understanding of gender and gender-based violence and what we have taken and have been considered as normal, you know, the violence that is perpetrated that is normal. I also wanted to bring and offer here that the experience and the knowledge that I bring into the space is as a child witness to domestic violence, as a survivor of sexual abuse, as a trained human rights lawyer in Colombia, a community organizer both in Colombia and Canada, a social worker here in Toronto, where I work as a transitional and housing support worker for the past 15 years. I'm also an artist facilitator and a community engaged artist. I call myself a dreamer. And I wanted to bring this because I recognize that part of my journey as a survivor was to make sure that I was creating spaces for other survivors, but also that creating these spaces was my own way of healing. And when I mention this, I want to also acknowledge that we survivors are in a spectrum. Some of us are in the position of being able to create a space for us and for other survivors. And there are survivors that are in situations in which they are not at that place, and that is okay. And for me, it's important to bring this to our conversations, to recognize that we all come from different experience, different cultures, and different realities that place us in situations that are obviously different for each one of us. I want to share also before I did into what I bring to offer that Muse Arts is a community arts organization led by immigrant, newcomer, and refugee artists that we work using arts to create a space to have important conversations in having gender-based violence, in the eradication of gender-based violence, as well as forced migration at the center of these conversations. I admit again that this center is based on the experiences of those of us that are immigrants that had arrived here and that had experienced interpersonal violence in cases, also partner violence. I also want to share with you all that while we are these artists, these individuals that bring different knowledge and experience, we also have transfer skills that we have gained either here in Canada or we bring from those places that we first call homes. I want to share with you the way in which we create a space at Muse Arts for survivors to share their stories. I want to say that some of us feel more empowered when we share our stories, and others feel that they rather not to share their stories. Yes, they want to still write about them. I want to make reference that our work is no art therapy. And this is important to recognize because art therapy is a specific methodology to do therapy, and where facilitators and where psychologists that use this theory are trained to do so. We recognize though that the arts have this therapeutic power, yet it is no art therapy. One of the reasons for which we create this space and it's called The Stories We Share. It's because we believe also in the power of community. Many of the participants in our programs come into the spaces to share, to learn a little bit more about poetry, creative writing. But through the months and through the times in which we get together, we get to know each other and learn from our personal experiences. And through those important conversations, communities build and new networks and friendships are also created. As someone who works directly with participants and has the possibility of transferring skills from my social work practice, from my practice as a community engaged artist, I can say that this way of providing support is extremely empowering, because it lasts, particularly for those who have not had the opportunity of sharing their experiences or learning about others having gone through similar situations. So we believe that we build resilience and confidence through the work that we do. And this is supported by the fact that participants in our programming, the programming that is oriented to use an art form as a way to create and to express feelings, emotions, and tell stories, is a great way to empower participants who had experienced, in many cases, different types of violence. We have seen the powerful strategy that this is, particularly with newcomers and refugees, when language could be a barrier, where lack of community supports become an obstacle for people to, for participants to actually identify either themselves as someone who's in a situation of violence, or someone who does not feel they have enough information to be able to talk about the experiences that they're having in their lives. We, as I mentioned before, feel that it's very important to recognize that not everybody wants to tell the story, and that is okay. Some of us feel very empowered by telling our story and sharing what we have gone through, and also using that as a way to support others to leave circles of violence. But we also know that many community members and many participants of our programs rather to keep their experience for themselves until they are ready. We feel that that is absolutely okay, and that it is actually the best way in which community members are a part of this process, because we also think that this is a personal journey, in that each individual needs to look at the complexity of their situations and see what will fit them best and what will support their process in the best way. We have created programs where we use the arts as a strategy for education and life. Our programming, using visual arts to discuss diversity and inclusion, and to discuss racism, Islamophobia, domestic violence, interpersonal violence, ways to solve conflict, or when we work with youth, we discuss healthy relationships, toxic masculinity, or when we work with women, we go into life experiences. We believe that these tools and bringing arts to discuss these very important and life topics allow us to create spaces where vulnerability is part of the process, where respect is at the center, where confidentiality in the group conversation is crucial to create spaces where we all feel safe and comfortable to talk. But there is also a lot of learning in that process, learning from the experience of others, learning the differences that are in the realities that each of us bring along with our culture. I just noticed that I probably passed one important slide that I thought that I need to bring to our conversation, and is that through our work and through the facilitation that we bring into this programming, we recognize intersectionalities and recognize power, privilege, and influence. We first recognize that as facilitators. Again, we are not therapists. Couple of the leading facilitators, such as myself and a few others, have training in conflict resolution, conflict escalation, and crisis intervention. Myself being a social worker, I do transfer my skills to the program. However, when I do the program, and any of the community arts facilitators do the programming, I had emphasized, and I emphasize here as well, that it's not art therapy. We are creating a space for knowledge sharing, experience sharing, recognizing the power of community, in the power of networking when women get together and talk about their experiences. We recognize, of course, that even the possibility of going into a program is associated with the possibility of leaving a job or a paid work to be able to come to an in-person workshop, or having the means to pay for transportation to be able to get there, or having someone to take care of the kids while we go to the program, or in the case of a full year of online programming, do we have access to internet? We have access to the resources to be able to stop working and dedicate the 2 hours of a program. So we recognize that many community members do not have those possibilities, that are still in situations of vulnerability. Our programs are highly oriented to support people in women identifying participants who are new to the country, who may experience multiple barriers, including immigration status barriers. Many of the participants may not have status in the country, and we believe it's very important that we create these spaces that allow us to have this type of conversations. What happens in that process? Well, participants are aware of confidentiality, and we create spaces that become very supportive in the sense of participants making disclosure about their experiences, and for us to have access to information that allows them to go to different places through referrals. Could be, a psychological referral, or could be attending a community center where they will have access to legal support, etc., etc. And this is important, and I know that it may feel a little bit strange to have a community arts organization talking in this panel, but I purposely focus on the community arts because I do believe that arts are also crucial in bringing these conversations above, and in a way that don't feel intrusive, in a way that they don't feel impulsive, or where it does not create tensions. And I had already talked about this, the important ways of using the arts to bring education and awareness. And for that, I will also share that a lot of our programming now is oriented to empower youth, and empowering youth to explore concepts of healthy relationships, explore concepts of what it is to have to be empowered, to have a full understanding and respect of other community members, spaces and identities. We discuss elements such as advocacy, justice, equity, and what that means, in relation to gender, and what it means in relation to the eradication of gender-based violence. I wanted to bring, a creative writing exercise, but I also, aware of time, I just want to present this to you all as a way for you to see what are, the prompts that we may use in a programming. So, we explain what creative writing is, and then we start with, with a prompt, in this case, like gratitude list. We ask participants to write a list of things they are grateful for. And as you all know, in many cases, and now during the lockdown, we recognize the increase of violence against women and the vulnerability that was happening there. So while there is a list about gratitude, there are other elements that participants will disclose that they are not grateful for, but they are in their minds, and then we start exploring those elements as well. As a closing and in a personal note as well, I have to say that, as a survivor and as someone, as a dreamer, someone who has done this work for many years, first back in Colombia and then in Canada for all these many years, and that has gone from working on the legal aspect, social work aspect, down the artistic aspect, recognizing and navigating, the complexity that is also to be a service provider, the complexity from dealing with, precarious trauma, from feeling overwhelmed and sometimes even burnt out, recognizing that when we are also survivors and providers of services, we also get triggered. I can attest that having the arts as a way to, to navigate also my own experience in the ways in which I support survivors has been such an incredible tool, which I am now fully dedicated to. But what I wanted to mention is that in all my journey, hope has been the main point. As a child who witnessed a mother being hit many, many years, hope was there. For me, as someone who had to deal with her own experiences, hope was always there, and for me was that light at the end of the tunnel, and continues to be that. And what I think that we bring to the communities, and what we bring to those spaces where we bring community and where we bring art, is that we also bring hope, that light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you very much, and I hope this information has been also useful, and I'm looking forward to hearing the other panelists and, of course, all your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla, for that amazing presentation. What a beautiful program you run. It was just amazing to hear you. Now, I know you stressed a couple of times that you're not art therapy. However, it was lovely to see all those colors, all those people, pictures, the ways and methodologies to express themselves. Mm-hmm. If the end is almost similar, doesn't matter the path that they took. Many roads leading to the same situation. Mm-hmm. That is therapeutic. Mm-hmm. That is enabling them to express themselves. Isn't that just so beautiful?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I make it very clear that it's no art therapy, is because I recognize that therapy requires a process and also a follow-up, right? And so I think it's very important that we then take away the element of art therapy into the arts that go in and make this important process. I totally agree with you. I do believe that arts, in many types of arts, are therapeutic. But the art therapy is a specific form of therapy that is used in many cases, loved, in other cases, questioned, etc., but that's not what we do there. But I definitely agree with you. Art has saved me, and I am determined to bring arts to spaces, because I strongly believe that a creative person can overcome adversity. And that's precisely what we bring, creativity as a way to create a space for resiliency, but also to create community. And I have seen how women get together and they feel empowered by sharing the story, but they also feel empowered by being together and recognizing that one can see oneself in the other, and that the journey can be painful as it is in when we are dealing with it, but we also have hope, because this, as everything else, will also pass. So thank you so much.
I agree with you. You know, as an educator myself, working with children with an age bracket of 3 to 16 years, you know, the power of the spoken and written word is powerful.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. So I totally agree there with you. Your first slide resonated very well with me too, the individual reflection on colonization and language, the impact it has had on gender and gender-based violence. You know, as a third generation Kenyan, and many with the African diaspora that are part of our audience, as well as, you know, of Indian origin. You know, the colonialism has definitely caused a lot of generational trauma, and with everything that's happening in Canada, as I dig more into my own roots,
yes,
it's been a very interesting journey indeed. So I, you know, that first slide of yours really resonated, along with your quote, resilience and personal strength develop when one can finally tell one's own story without shame, but with courage. Lovely, yes. Absolutely, and how true. Yes. We need to be able to tell our stories without shame, but with courage.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes. And of course, I love the fact that you ended with gratitude, especially in, you know, the last 18 months. When there's nothing else, there's hope.
Yes.
Hope that this will come to an end. Hope that there will be a new normal that we can adjust to. Hope that everybody's waking up normal with a very positive attitude, positive manner. So I love that you ended up with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Please send in your questions and we will get to them. If they are meant for any specific panelist, it would be great if you can write down the panelist's name so that we know who to address your questions to. I'd like to now introduce our third panelist for this afternoon. LYDIA MUTYABA has a background in democracy, human rights, and refugee issues. She has worked over 10 years with Amnesty International Canada and New Circles Community Services. She's an assaulted women's and children's counselor. Currently, LYDIA is working on a project that connects new immigrants to organizations and resources that they need to resettle successfully. Welcome, LYDIA. Looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you so much. Are you able to see me right now?
Yes, very clearly. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. So there, we'll share my screen.
A bit of an echo at your end.
Do you hear an echo at my end?
Oh, it seems better. Continue.
Okay, wonderful. Just bear with me 1 second. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I am.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me here on this panel. I truly appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to speak here. As you have mentioned, I have a background in, human rights, refugee studies, and women's rights. I am also a trained women's and children's counselor. But over the last year, I've spent time on a project that is trying to connect people to the resources that are available in the community. And that is because I am an immigrant myself. I've been here for about 15 years, and I've also worked in the immigrant communities, especially with newcomers. One of the things that I noticed, or that was obvious in my work, is that a number of people, majority of people are unaware of the resources that are available in the community. And when it comes to gender-based violence, many of the people are suffering in silence because either they don't know where to go or they're unafraid to reach out because they fear the repercussions. So our colleague and I put this together to try and really, make sure that people have access to this information right away, to feature the wonderful organizations like the ones that SUCHIRA and PAOLA have talked about, and that they can quickly connect online or over their phones to get the help that they need. And so for today's, I really just wanted to put a spotlight on, some of the community organizations that are doing amazing work, to talk about resilience as people, as women are looking to, move themselves forward to build their resilience, an understanding of what it is and what it is not, and to explore some of the challenges that they have as they try to reach out, and as well, to talk about the benefits of connecting with community, and to just give an overview of how they can support children that have either been witnesses or that have experienced trauma themselves. So when, as my colleagues have talked about gender-based violence, it's really a crisis that's affecting a lot of women globally. And as you can see, it's like 1 out of 3 women in the world have faced gender-based violence. And as they get themselves out of this situation, there's this idea, you have to be strong, you have to soldier through, you have to kick the problem aside and focus on, being positive and moving forward. But to me, or the true understanding of resilience, or the true meaning of resilience, is really about the ability to face challenges, the ability to really understand and sit with the discomfort and to work through it, and just know that, even though some situations are tough, it could be overwhelming, but at the end of the day, you can keep moving forward and that things will get better. And about resilience again, I think about, the internal strength that we have. And I also think about the external, strength that we get from our communities, or, from the professionals that work around us. And when we look at women, especially in the Western world, when they, when they're coping with the effects of, trauma, or when they're trying to walk through, getting themselves to where they need to go, generally, many women, including myself, we tend to focus on, mental self-care, which is all internal, take yourself, take a break, be mindful, meditate, do yoga, take up physical self-care, exercise, walk, social self-care. And we do not tend to reach out to the number of organizations that are around to really get the support that we need to actually maintain the work that we're doing with ourselves. And so in our research, we really noted that some of the challenges that people have in the community in terms of, getting the support, the external supports that they need to really maintain, their journey moving forward, is one of them, especially in the immigrant communities, is isolation. A number of people, especially newcomers, do not have the, they don't have the family, they don't have the friends yet, or the networks yet to be able to call upon when they're having challenges. And the last 2 years have actually been quite brutal on all of us, including everybody else, in terms of reaching out for help, because we've all been stuck at home. And, sometimes, you're in that space, you can't go anywhere, you internalize, and things get worse. The other issue for them accessing external supports is because of cultural conditioning. There are a lot of communities, including my own, I come from Uganda, where, discussing issues that happen in the house, talking about, domestic violence or whatever it is really it's not something that we do. And so for most people, it is intrinsic in them that they keep everything inside. The other could be that people reach out to they have spouses or family that, tell them, you should not go looking for that support, because if you do, there are repercussions that will come with that, or that nobody's going to understand or, help you work through your challenges. Other people that are trying to get help out there, they have, family obligations, either, they have kids, they have work, they have a lot of things that don't create the space for them to be able to seek the support that they need. Others have language barriers. I think PAOLA mentioned, where people feel like, I don't even have the language. I don't think they'll understand when I try to express myself in those spaces where I can get the assistance, while others just feel, if I go out there, my safety will be compromised, so it's best for me to stay outside. To stay out of going to get help. And so what I wanted to really implore the people that are listening that might either be going through the violence or that have experienced it, is to really, step out and look up. Because what we've realized is that there are quite a number of organizations, amazing organizations in Ontario, in Toronto, in the GTA that are doing amazing work and that have been trained in a trauma-informed way to really be the support system that we need to carry us through the challenges that we have. They can be, as Paula mentioned, they can help us with emotional, support, de-escalation. They can offer some financial support that we need, some legal support, and the three things that I thought were most critical that they can help us with as well is safety planning, because for many people when they're going through a crisis, there's the worry that, how am I, like if it happens again, what's going to happen to me? And there are a number of organizations here that are working to really help, become a partner for us, a second pair of eyes that can help us to really look at, do risk assessment and see where, all the risks lie with us, and to help us put together a plan so that if violence happens again, or if we are afraid of violence, we have a solution. And so they can help you put together, a list of the things, a list of emergency telephone number, a list of items that you will need if you are to leave that situation. And they can even help you pack a bag and put it somewhere where in case of an emergency, you can quickly deploy, whatever plan you had put together with them. So in here, I feature two organizations, which the first one was Women at the Center, which is a group. It was created by survivors of violence, and they have created a space where survivors can actually come and they help them with safety plans, but as well, they help to create that space where they can really talk about what's going on with them and get support from each other. I know SUCHIRA is with Victim Services Toronto, but I did put this here to say that if you need a safety plan, for example, there are tons of resources online that you can actually, if you didn't even want to go in, you can go on the website, get the resources, but they are there if you need to walk you through getting the support that you need. Another value that I want to implore people to take advantage of is the counseling services that are, quite plentiful in Toronto. And although it might be hard to access them, they are available over the phone now if you want to, if that's the approach that you want to take with it, because really they do provide you that space where you can, talk about the feelings that you have and be able to get the support, not only the support, but also talk about, how am I going to overcome this? They will offer you, they'll be that partner that can be there with you, not once, but, as you work with them to help you pinpoint what your best strategies are and how you can improve your self-care and how you can get yourself the support that you need. I did mention that there are as well, emergency lines, crisis lines that you can actually just pick up and call. And even if you did not want to book an appointment, but if you need to talk to someone, that you can just pick up that phone and speak with someone. So that was another benefit of really reaching out to community supports that is there for us to tap into. And the other one is really to look at organized communities, communities that are organized around supporting victims, but not only victims of gender violence, but really supporting people to make connections so that they can reduce the isolation that they have. I really enjoyed Paola's talk about Muse Arts, because that's really what it is all about. It's about going into those spaces, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that you talk about your experiences, but it can be that you go there and you can have that connection with others, and you can see how they're exploring the issues that they're going through, or that you can really start to build some peer-to-peer relationships that can help you, strengthen yourself and build the resilience that you need to move forward. I did also mention the Kenya-Canadian Association, only because they are sort of a multicultural organization that has been able to do amazing things, to develop these other programs so that when you go there, perhaps what you're looking for is to find, some similarities with people that share your same, they have the same perspectives as you. It could be about violence, it could be about a whole lot of other things, but a space like this will really help you because they have programming around the members that they have, so that they can offer you legal support, like, legal information that you need. They can offer you, information that you can use to really move yourself forward. So overall, that, with all the resources, apart from the emotional, support that organizations can offer, they're really a wonderful support when you need to come up, to get safety planning done, when you need counseling to move through, and when you need to make social connections that can really help you empower yourself and feel like, you can move forward. And those are really the key to building resilience. That really matters. And as you're working towards getting your own resistance, I thought I would talk about, because many of us have children in our homes, and sometimes there can be violent situations that happen with us, and we feel like, you know, they're too young, they won't understand, or they will forget about it. But it's really true that children absorb, you know, frightening events. They really take it in, and they, even from conversations that they hear you having, they really can take it in. And so as we work to better ourselves, it's really critical that we offer the same work and support to the children by, you know, making sure they're in a safe space, making sure we connect them back with their peers, but also that we take the time out to really engage with them and show them how they can do self-care, how they can build positive attitudes, how they can, you know, they can discover who they are so that they can better themselves and really work through these emotions that they have. As well, if we listen and feel like, you know, they need the support that we're getting as well from counseling, that we can offer them the same opportunity. I mentioned here an organization called Skylark Youth, and it's one that really does a lot of free counseling for young people, but not only for young people, they also involve families in there. If you want to have therapy as a family, they will offer the supports to you. So, so as I end my conversation about resilience, I wanted to leave you with this quote that's from an American psychologist called Yasmin Mogahed that says, "Resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going." And so I encourage each one of us that might be going through a similar journey to really reach out, because the resources are there. And the amazing thing is most of the resources here in Toronto are free of charge. And the only investment we have to take is really just give the time, either over the phone or in person, so we can get the support that we need. I included some critical resources here that we're going to have on our platform. Our platform will be launched on November the 1st, but we really have included a detail of resources that at a click of a button you can connect via phone, or you can find, you know, the contact information for any resource that you need, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. I want to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. And yeah, if you have any questions, please, you can ask at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that presentation, Lydia. How amazing is it that we have all these services available to us now?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, have we stopped sharing? Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you now.
Yes. You know, where were you when I needed you 15 years ago? Because, you know, single parent, 3 children, like, as I heard you talk about all these services you have available, I was like, wow. You know, I had a family member, I had a friend, 2 people to turn to, and I think I just must have milked that service from them so much, because
Right.
I had nowhere else to go. I didn't know there was a place to go. And I'm sure there are many, many immigrants that feel that beyond their circle of close family, who are not
Right.
professional, who are not really trained to help them in the correct way, and who may or may not have any boundaries when offering advice too, right? They don't know who to turn to.
Absolutely.
And I am not aware that, you know, that there were any such services at all, or where to even start looking. So it's absolutely amazing that we have all this today.
And that my journey is similar to, because I am all those things actually, and it was hard, but once, like, because I'm in the field, it was easier for me to access the resources, especially the counseling resources. But I know that I would meet with people, have conversations about, you know, did you know about this organization? Did you know about these organizations, as I was giving referrals? And it was always like some shock, like, no, I did not know that, or a fear that I have to pay a lot of money to access these resources. So yeah, it's really important to make it accessible to everybody so that they know of all these wonderful organizations, for sure.
So I have a question for you. Is the Skylark Youth Services only in Toronto, or is it available in other cities as well?
I believe it's available mainly in the GTA.
Okay. All right.
They definitely have the resources on their website, and we can always look at it after here. But I believe they don't have numerous locations.
I think a lot of people could relate to your resilience quote on your second last or last slide. You know, you fall, but you pick yourself up. I almost thought you were referring to me. Right, so I'm sure a lot of people in our audience can also relate to that quote. I'd like to thank you for mentioning CAS as one of the resources available too, and for our audience listening in through YouTube or Facebook or live on Zoom, if you do go to the KCA website, there is a lot of support in our various programs that you can reach out to. The crisis lines, helplines are also mentioned there. We do have a question for Lydia. Do you think shame plays a part in why people may or may not participate in your services? And also,
Absolutely.
how do you encourage resilience when you're aware of people experiencing violence but aren't ready to reach out for help? The two questions. I can repeat it if you wish me to.
Sure.
So it's, do you think shame plays a part in why people may or may not participate in your services?
Yeah. Okay. So question, I believe absolutely it does, because number one, people that perpetuate the violence on us, in my view, are people that we, of course, we love them. These are family members. They could be family members. They could be, close people in our circle. So when they do this, it's almost a letdown for us. But we also not that we want to protect them, but it makes us feel like we failed to get them to that point. Or if it's not that, if people will judge us and say, oh, you failed at making that relationship work. You understand, or that you have a household that has violence. That could also make people not want to disclose that they have gone through violence, because for sure they and maybe my culture as well. I was raised in a home where everything had to look perfect on the outside. And for me, showing any signs of issues would almost reflect on me as a person. And so shame definitely does play a role for different reasons in why people don't access services, because they don't want to look as failures, they don't want to look as victims. Some people just don't want to look as victims. So it does play a part. And what was your second question? What was the second question there?
And how do you encourage resilience when you're aware of people experiencing violence but aren't ready to reach out for help?
The reality is that every person's journey is individual. Everybody goes through their, building resilience at their own pace. And so we must be respectful of people that, as you say, that they might be going through it. You might observe that they're going through violence, and you might observe that they need the help, but they are not ready to get the help. If it's encouraging those around them, it's probably to support them as they're going through the journey, to really be there for them and be that support until they're ready to go get the help, because all you can do is make sure that the person has the information in front of them, but you have to be respectful of, it cannot be a forced experience where you try to get people to get the help that they do not want. So definitely, if it takes the only challenge is fear of violence, or fear of harm. But the reality is that you can provide the person the resources, but you cannot force them to go get them if they do not want to get them, and that's the unfortunate part.
This is a tough one. This takes
be the support that they need. Be the support they need.
That you just meet them where they are.
Exactly. And so maybe the panel might have the responses and they can add on to that, but I do feel that you can be that support system, but you definitely cannot be the one forcing them to get the help if they're not ready to get the help.
So I have another question for you. When a child comes with a traumatic event, what approaches are taken as first steps to help that child to overcome or try to overcome her trauma, since each child is different, with a different experience of trauma? So one approach working for one child may not work for another.
Right. And are you talking from the vantage point of a worker, or are you talking from the vantage point of a parent?
I'm not clear, but I do feel this question is more parent related, and perhaps they could be referring to siblings. When a child comes with a traumatic event, what approaches are taken as first steps to help them overcome, knowing that the children can be different?
For sure. So for me, in my work, the first place would be to really listen and understand, because sometimes kids they might not have the exact language to express themselves as you want them to. So as they should, so you can understand clearly. So for me, it would be to really sit down and take the time to listen to them and understand what they're telling me. And if I'm not clear, then I ask, So what I hear you saying is that this and this happened. Am I getting you right? And I speak with them until I get to the point where I feel like I understand what they're saying. And there are moments when you know you need, like you can help them work through it, but there are moments when you can't, you don't have the tools or the resources to help them, and you can't. It's okay for you to get help if they need a counselor, if they need to speak with someone like that. It is okay to get that person to help them. But I think the most important step is first to work through them. To speak with them. And for most children as well, if you can create like sort of a plan of, engage with them over a period of time to see how they fare with the information I'm giving them. But if not, then you would have to seek professional assistance for them to work through the issues that are happening. And if there's other people involved and their children, you might have to involve other, I'm not saying the law, but you would have to get other supports, because if it's a child, they do require the protection. They require to get protection for themselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Bisma, I hope Lydia was able to answer your question appropriately. If you still have any follow-up, feel free to send them in, and then we will come back to some more Q&As at the end.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Lydia. That was indeed very insightful, and I'm sure everybody, our audience, all found that the same. I would now like to introduce our fourth panelist for this afternoon. SHIFFO Farah is a social worker and an alternative dispute resolution professional working in Toronto. SHIFFO specializes in child welfare involvement, separation and divorce, including post-separation contact, relationship issues, along with anxiety, depression, anger, stress management, to name just a few. She uses a blend of modalities and provides a safe environment to explore various issues without bias or judgments. SHIFFO is also the founder of Farah Family Solutions, Inc. Welcome, SHIFFO, to our webinar.
Thank you very much, and I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to say habari zenu. I'm a fellow Kenyan, and I'm honored to be here. And thank you very much to KCF for inviting me. So I really am honored and appreciate this opportunity to talk about what I do and my work. I'm going to try and see if I can share my screen. This is a little bit about me. I know that you have done a bit of a bio, but I think maybe just sharing who I am may be helpful. I'm wondering if everybody can see. Can you see my?
Yes, I can. Yeah, thank you.
You can see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Are you good to go ahead?
Yes, so I'm going to introduce myself. Again, just a little bit about who I am, about me. I am a social worker, psychotherapist, and I have been working in the Toronto GTA for over 27 years. So, the cornerstone of what I do is truly the belief that healing is a collaborative approach. It is not a one person. There are no experts in a healing space, but individuals that sit together to sort of explore what the challenges are, and with a strong belief that resources or resiliency or solutions come from families. And most families have already built-in solutions and support, and they just require somebody to facilitate that process for them. So this is more me in terms of how I work with families. So over the years, I think in my journey of working with families, I've I've come to appreciate the challenges and the struggles of newcomer immigrants. I was one myself many moons ago, but the challenges didn't just disappear because I came to Canada and I got my citizenship. The challenges continued. And the more I looked around, there were very few services that reflected the kind of work or the kind of experiences we've had, whether it's the fact that we've come in as refugees, whether we've come in as immigrants or migrants, whether we've come in under the employment class, or whether we've been sponsored. So there's been numerous challenges that I kind of witnessed throughout my work as a community worker earlier on in my life. In around 2006 or 2007, decided that I wanted to do work with children, specifically African communities that come across child welfare. In my community life, I found myself doing a lot of advocacy, a lot of work with families to navigate child welfare system and the criminal justice system. And then kind of moved on into a management role within Children's Aid Society at Peel. And then later on decided to sort of take a little bit of a different journey to do private practice, and specifically working with families, those who identify as Africans or African Americans or Black Canadians as well. Over the years, I think what, working so many years in child welfare and in community social work, you look for ways to combine the two. And a big part of my skill set is really trauma therapy, trauma counseling. As I say, in this work of today, or working with families in this modern times and not paying attention to trauma is really a huge miss. But trauma doesn't mean people don't recover. It is that understanding that allows us to be convicted in the fact that there is resiliency and people do recover from their trauma. Another aspect of my work is really working from a race-based and specifically looking at race-based trauma, whether it's racism that people experience or whether they feel or have challenges like navigating based on their own social location. So a huge base of the work is in trauma treatment with individuals that have experienced racism, mostly systemic racism. In addition to that, I do reconciliation therapy, and I think for the purpose of today's conversation, I'll focus a little bit on that aspect. And alternative dispute resolution. This is critical in the work that we do. Alternative dispute resolution, ADR as it is referred to, is part of, it is funded through the Attorney General, but I am a private practitioner, so my services are contracted to work with individuals that come across systems. So Children's Aid is one of those systems that are required to work with families by looking at alternatives to the court system, especially when there are children that have been removed. Children's Aid, based on their statistics, I believe 1 out of 3 children that are removed from home are mainly removed because there's domestic violence issues. And for that reason, I find myself to deal with or work with families that have experienced violence or children that have been exposed to or have witnessed violence. So I think sharing my background really helps to sort of center the kind of work Farah Family Solution does, mainly working with families to provide the kind of supports that they need in a therapeutic environment. I'm going to just pull out another slide because I have my information in 2 different slides, so bear with me.
No worries, SHIFFO, take your time. It's really interesting to hear about your experience at CAS.
Thank you. So who are we? So Farah Family Solutions is a for-profit organization. So I've been doing private practice for maybe 12 years now, but mid last year, based on the needs of families and expectations to do this work in a more guided way, I decided to take a leap and open up my own private practice. To date, we have grown. I have 4 other facilitators or 4 other therapists with me. One of my therapists is from Jamaica, and the focus again is children and women. I have 2 gentlemen who specifically work in the mental health sector, drug addiction, concurrent disorders, and other mental health. Another young female who also works mainly with families that are struggling with issues of depression and anxiety, and myself. So the 5 of us, 4 or 5, and another gentleman, I don't think I described the other gentleman. He specifically works with youth who are sort of interested in, or maybe being lured into gang behavior, gang ideas, and as well as addiction. And he also works with families that have experienced extreme trauma, whether it is family violence, whether it is trauma as a result of gun violence. So that's his focus. What we do in counseling, as a counseling service, is we work with families, we work with individuals. Our big focus is to work from a child-centered perspective. And we, being people of African descent, whether my colleagues are from the Caribbean, some of them from Africa, is the fact that we center our Africanness in our work, appreciating that it is the family dynamic that we are working with a clear focus that the children are at the center of the work. In this work, we've recognized that our families do struggle with systems. They struggle navigating whether police gets involved because there was a 911 call as a result of domestic violence. We know that our families do encounter the police system in a very negative way, especially Black fathers, where sometimes that concept of even parenthood is sometimes denied from the get-go when police gets involved. So based on that, our approach is always to look at what are the treatment modalities we can employ that will bring dad to the table, will bring mom to the table, will bring the children to the table to begin their healing. This concept is unique here. Not many therapists approach the treatment in this way. In addition to that, we are not just office focused. So we're not expecting that every person that we are working with come to our offices. Part of our work with families, especially those who've experienced conflict in the home, is we will do a home visit, sometimes assess kids in their own home and look at ways to sort of help with the comfort that they have to begin their own healing. We also work with kids, especially when they're teenagers. They don't want to come to an office. So we may go to the park with them and really utilizing some of those unconventional methods of doing therapy to engage individuals. We do play therapy. So for those of you who are asking, we do play therapy and use very many different modalities. So again, our approach is very Afro-centered. And we do use the Kwanzaa approach, which is so much centered in Afrocentricity, where we look at concept like Nia, and this plays out in our therapy, because this is the language that we all understand, that, you know, things come from intention, and if intentions are good, things are good. Creativity, acknowledging and appreciating that every individual within the family is creative, has a role, have a space to be able to articulate and center themselves. We also strongly center faith. Irrespective of your faith or background, it is very, very important in how you see your family and how healing begins. In addition to that, we look at the concepts of unity. So, you know, the argument that I give families when there is conflict, a child doesn't heal outside of the perpetrator or the individual that have caused harm. So how do we engage in unity as part of the treatment? What is it that the parent that is that has harmed, has hurt their child, tell their child, and how is the other parent a witness in the healing process? Another important piece is this concept of self-determination. So we, you know, I think as a Kenyan myself, so knowing that this is Swahili words that are being thrown around, is we are our environment and we contribute to our environment. And if we want change within our environment, we need to bring that self-determination. And that is key concept in developing self-esteem for young ones. It's a key component to really begin addressing the conflict within the home. Parents can separate, but you don't separate from your children. And that brings me to the other work that that is very central is reunification. When there's family violence, we know that there is impact. The impact is not just one person. It may be the woman, may be the victim. Sometimes men are victims, but that doesn't mean that it is just that one person that is being impacted. We know that children who witness, and sometimes we speak in therapy sessions or talk about, you know, when the child was sleeping, did they hear? A child who's 2 months old, do they know? When a child is unborn and is a fetus, do they hear or do they know that there's violence going on in their home? And almost every research that I have come across, unequivocally, and I can't say this very emphatically, unequivocally says that there is impact as a result of domestic violence. And if that's the case, how do we then minimize, or if not minimize, completely do away with violence in the home? And this becomes the focal point when we're doing the psychoeducational aspects of violence within the therapy room. A big component is educating and helping our families understand that there will be conflict, and that's why I love my job as a conflict resolution therapist, is there's a conflict in human relationship. We are built to be in conflict. The issue is not about conflict. It is how we resolve conflict that comes to play. So we know that there are significant impact of violence in the home. There's physical, mental, behavioral, cognitive, and even developmental problems that people see because there's violence in their home. So our approach, I hope I'm doing well in time. So our approach in supporting families is one of inclusivity. We work from the perspective that exposure to any adult conflict is traumatic or can be traumatic, even more so is harmful. A child will require to heal, so would dad, so would mom, so would the siblings. And sometimes the children become casualties in aspects of conflict in the home. I am located in Toronto, so my address here is in Toronto, 2011 Lawrence Avenue. We work actually 7 days a week, so I have the therapists, we rotate. We start our businesses here, starts at 9 in the morning, and we work as late as 8 p.m. It is very simple. You call our main line, leave a message, and somebody will call you back. We endeavor to provide, to respond immediately, because this type of work requires immediate response. So my team and I commit to call individuals back within 12 hours, because best therapy is when it is timely. With that said, I want to say thank you very, very much. And yeah, that's it.
Asante sana, SHIFFO. That was a really good presentation. I must say, I really appreciate your Afrocentric approach to this very challenging prospect of having families reach out, because, you know, every culture, including those back home in Africa or anywhere else in the world, have had their own methods, modalities, and ways of sorting out differences and challenges. And of course, as long as they comply within the legal requirements of Canada, since this is where we live and this is where we have to enable all those modalities, as long as they comply. It's quite interesting and amazing that you have used that approach. And I think that would make a lot of people feel very comfortable to reach out to you. All right. I was put in a similar situation a few weeks ago where I had to reach out to somebody at CAS, and I'll tell you, it was a very tough decision for me as an educator. A student wrote on one of their homework assignments, help. And, you know, named one parent and said abuses me. And I was, as an educator, I am mandated to report it.
Duty to report.
Absolutely. But the fact that this family has been with me for many years, I could not get my head around that bad. And, you know, I tried to think about, can I invite them in? Can I talk to the parents? Can I talk to the children? But then I'm not the professional there. I'm not a trained social worker. I'm not sure what it involves. So I actually had to do the right thing. And report. And even then, I had a conversation with the CAS officer, was like, because in some cultures, you know, speaking in a loud voice, yes, your kid, right, is not necessarily considered abuse. How would they handle it? Would they respect where this person is coming from? It's a minority culture, right? So it was quite a tough decision, but I think I made the right decision. And did what I was mandated to do as an educator. I'm sure you come across.
Absolutely. Right? If I, Sanjit, if I may tell you that there is training, and for those families that are watching, you know, a lot of CS may not sound positive for many families, but sometimes it's God sent in many ways, because there are resources, there are support. What I encourage people who are mandated with the duty to report is learn how to do the reporting. How can you support a family while doing the right thing? So how do we provide the information to CS? Because my colleagues who work in domestic violence and who work with women specifically are mandated to call, but they know, they've learned the language to use to support a woman who is running away from abuse, to be able to ensure that the children are safe as well. So it is a matter of how we do advocacy and how we engage the support. Children's Aid wants to work with families in most cases, and families sometimes terrified coming from different parts. I would say to families, when you see your children with behavior, seek help, especially when there's domestic violence. That help is important for their well-being. You know, children become anxious, they become overwhelmed. Sometimes they cry. Those are real issues for young people. I hear kids telling me, you know, I hear my dad's voice or hear a man's voice and I start panicking, and they have panic attacks. So how do we support the young ones? Just because they were sleeping at 2 a.m. in the morning does not mean they were not putting their heads, because they see the signs. They're little people. That's what we say. They're little people. They are feeling it, experiencing it. Be mindful. And I talk to moms and dads, and I tell them, if you came here for one good reason. to make sure your kids are successful.
Yes, so well, and you know, the CAS worker reassured me exactly along the same lines as you, that their aim and their goal is not to remove the children from the family, not at all to separate them. But like you said, it may be the best thing, because the parents have to step back and realize that their behavior was rather traumatic, to the point that the child had to reach out for help by writing this out on their homework assignment. So really, really important for parents and families to realize that sometimes it may be the best thing. So really, so far we've had some amazing information from all our panelists. I'd like to reassure all the audience listening in live on this webinar, as well as Facebook and YouTube, that all the resources, all the crisis lines, the links, the websites will all be made available on KCA's Facebook and YouTube pages later on. So please do come back. You will be able to avail all these resources in case you have not been able to take note of them right away. Thank you very much, SHIFFO. Asante sana.
You're welcome. Asante sana, Theory.
And that, ladies and gents, brings us to our last finalist for this wonderful afternoon. I hope you're all still tuned in and listening in. Some very interesting information has been shared, and we will open up Q&A at the end. I'd now like to introduce SATHA VIVEKANANTHAN, who is a VAW counselor with Family Services Toronto. She's a psychotherapist and a member of the Ontario Association of Mental Health Professionals, with over 15 years experience in treating individuals with trauma from natural or man-made disasters, mental health, and other challenges. She's very involved with the Sri Lanka Canada Development Foundation work in Sri Lanka, where she acts as a consultant on a gender-based violence and related issues, and is currently working a gender-based violence project funded by Global Affairs Canada in the north and east of Sri Lanka. Welcome, SATHA.
Thank you, Sanjit, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I was asked to talk about the Family Service Toronto's Violence Against Women program. So I'm going to share my slides about the Violence Against Women program at Family Service Toronto. Can everybody see the screen?
Well, we can see you on the screen. Have you shared something with us?
What about now? No?
No.
Okay, let me go.
That's okay. Take your time.
Okay. This is actually a challenge for me.
I believe you, many of us are very technically challenged. If it wasn't for the team we have behind that support us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see now?
No. Do we need some input here for?
I tried. We tried before. Okay, let me try again. I don't want to waste time.
No, don't worry. One of our team will come on and just guide you through it.
Okay. So I want to share screen, then brought my presentation. If not, I think I'm depending on your tech team to help me.
Yes, that's okay. Someone will come on and.
Can they help me, please?
Hi, SATHA. You should see a couple options towards the bottom of your screen in the Zoom application, such as the share screen feature.
Yeah, that's what I went, yeah.
So once you click, there we go. Perfect.
I missed that part.
No worries. Glad it worked.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I was a bit nervous. So thank you for all the panelists who presented, and my presentation is all about what they said, except what we do at Family Service Toronto. So Family Service Toronto is actually a 110 years organization. It's a very, very old organization based in Toronto. But we have locations northeast and west of Toronto. We had our boundaries, but now because of COVID, we have flexed it and we are taking clients within Ontario. Earlier, we were only like Toronto based, but because of COVID, we are taking clients within Ontario. So it's not only GTA, it's within Ontario. So I would like to let you know, so if clients needs our support, whoever lives in Ontario, they can call us. The history of our program at Family Service Toronto is the Violence Against program is 20 years ago. We started the program. I was not a staff at Family Service Toronto. Then even I was not in Canada during that time. So it started with 4 staff. The languages we offer our services for victims of domestic violence in English, Tamil, Somali, Farsi, Arabic, and now we have Nigerian, and also like the Farsi speaking lady can offer in different languages. We have Urdu, Punjabi. The Arabic speaking ladies could do other languages from their region, and the Nigerian lady does speak different other languages. So it's very multicultural team with the Violence Against program team is very multicultural. The reason we have this is, as others mentioned, it's to have the cultural aspect, understanding the language, the barriers to overcome the barriers of our clients. So that's the reason we are offering in many languages. If we don't have that specific language speaking client staff, we have partnered with Barbara Schleifer Interpretation Services and also MCIS Interpretation Services, and the clients doesn't have to pay. The Family Service Toronto pays for their services. So we are very proud at VAW team to have a multicultural team and to offer the services in the respective languages. I actually would like to acknowledge the funders. It's the United Way, the Ministry of Children and Community and Social Services, and Ministry of Attorney General. So our clients are actually, because it's Violence Against Women program, women who have been abused by their intimate partners, male siblings, and parents. Because earlier we called it as domestic violence program 20 years ago when they started, but then we changed according to the needs of the clients. We changed the name, and then now we have added not only the intimate partners, but the male siblings and their parents. If the parents abuse a female daughter, they can come and access our services. So that's what we call as Violence Against Women program. So we have our clientele is the victims of domestic violence or siblings or parents. We have a partner contact client group. And also we started this new program after COVID started, Support Access Program. So the violence against clients are victims of domestic violence, whom I have been hearing from all our panelists who talked before me. The partner contact client is a client whom SUCHIRA was talking about. When a police is called, the abuser, the perpetrator is charged, and the perpetrators are put on a program called Partner Abuse Response Program. So the Family Service Toronto has a contract with Ministry of Attorney General to run Partner Abuse Response Program in many languages. So the victims, the Violence Against Women counselors, we work with victims of those perpetrators who are in the group. And that's called the Partner Contact Client Program. We don't have, earlier times, few years ago, we had different counselors to work only with partner contact clients, but funding cuts, we as Violence Against Women counselors are doing the partner contact work as well. The Support Access Program is a new program which started with Assaulted Women's Helpline. When women call Assaulted Women's Helpline for critical interventions, crisis intervention, they have partnered with us during COVID to do the services, to do counseling, to crisis intervention with those clients. So that's a new program we started with Assaulted Women's Helpline. So actually we increased our services to more clients during COVID, and we hired new staff because our clientele have increased, and we cannot, as someone said, it's crisis. Farah said it's therapy within 12 hours. We need to act. As SUCHIRA said, it's Family Service Toronto also have these support services to act within 12 hours or immediately. How do we get the clients? Clients call themselves. Our website is in detail. It's in different languages. The Family Service Toronto website have different, all the programs, all the workshops. So anyone who goes on the website are able to get the services what they want. So Violence Against Women program is there with all the counselors' names, extension numbers, phone numbers, all our workshops are there. So clients call and then they get the services. So it's self-referral. Referrals come from other organizations. There are various organizations in GTA, KAUR, or in Ontario. Sometimes we even get calls from other countries. They go on our websites and they have called us from other countries to get services for their family members who are living in Canada or who are living in Toronto. So we get calls from other organizations. Friends and families call us, and then the Red Door Shelter. The Red Door Shelter calls us. It's because the Assaulted Women's Helpline has a partner with Red Door Shelter. So we get referrals from Red Door Shelter and Assaulted Women's Help. This doesn't mean that we don't get calls from other shelters. We do work with a variety of partners who are talking here. So we are not saying that OFST is only limited to these shelters or these organizations. It's whoever calls our line, we are there to help the clients in different ways. So the intake is with we have two different intake processes. So on the website, all our names are there, everything's there. We call it as SAU, Service Access Unit. Service Access Unit is something like a central intake for Family Service Toronto. There are trained staff, there are different language speaking staff. So they would take the call and they will do a very brief screening, and then they will assign counselors to the clients. So that doesn't mean it's only for violence against women. At Family Service Toronto, it's a counseling organization. We have about 145 to 160 staff, and now we have more after pandemic. So they would screen and they would assign different counselors who work on different, like we have family counseling, we have violence against women, we have counselors to work with seniors, we have counselors to work with developmental disabilities. We are organizing another department now working towards mental health issues. So the SAU will actually refer them or assign different counselors. Then there's language specific counselors. For example, I speak Tamil. So if a Tamil person calls and asks by SAU, I need Tamil, then they will give my phone number and the client can leave a message on my voicemail. If the client wants to speak to a Nigerian speaking counselor, they can ask for a Nigerian speaking counselor, and then the SAU will put through them to the Nigerian speaking counselor. And then the language specific counselors, we do the intake, and then the clients become our clients. So that's our intake process. We also work together, as Farah said, with Children's Aid Society, and I'll talk about that later. So this presentation is about crisis counseling intervention, crisis intervention counseling. So the counseling session, in some organizations, they said it's specific, it's only 12 sessions, 6 sessions, 20 sessions. At Family Service Toronto, and particularly with violence against women, we don't have that restricted number of sessions. Because it all depends on the assessment, how in-depth the trauma is, what are the resources they need, how they access those resources, how the healing journey. It depends on their healing journey. So it's a trauma-informed, we do trauma-informed feminist approach counseling in the Violence Against Women program. So it all depends on the assessment, what they need. So it can be a 5-week session if the client says, I need 5 weeks and let me see. If they need no, after 5 weeks, we review. And if the client says, oh, I think I need more sessions, then we review and we do more sessions. So it's not necessarily, it's a 12 weeks program or 20 weeks program. So that's a flexibility at Violence Against Women program at Family Service Toronto we have. And our clients are very happy about that. And we are happy about that. The panelists here were talking about safety planning. Yes, when we do intervene the crisis, we do safety planning as well. Even otherwise, during the assessment, we do a safety planning. And most of us, all of us also do a safety planning at each and every session. Because as you know, the panelists know, each and every week may be different for a victim and their children. So every week, once a week or once in 2 weeks, when we do the sessions, we go through a safety planning and make sure a risk assessment, and we make sure the client is safe and her children are safe. So those are the things which are crucial. We also have a duty day counselors, we call it. So the duty day counselors, all the violence against women counselors, all the counselors who work with seniors, all the counselors who work with family counseling department, we are assigned to do a 1 day a week as duty counselors. So with all our clients, so I may have 3 clients a day, but I'm on a duty on Wednesday, I have to take the duty day calls. If a client calls SAU and say, I need support now, I'm in crisis, I need support now, and my responsibility is to intervene the crisis with the client and to do the necessity, what I have to do to the client. So we all have, so the FST has this duty day client program. We also have a walk-in clinic. So our walk-in clinics, you can go on website and see what are the days, and the counselors are assigned to do the walk-in clinics. So the walk-in clinics may be a single session, or it may be the client may need more sessions. So we will put the client on a waiting list. We will ask the client, do you want to be on a waiting list? And then we put the client on waiting list. So that's called walk-in clinic. So those are 2 different things. Duty day is crisis intervention. Staff, the counselors do intervene in the crisis, do whatever they have to do within that hour or 2 hours or 24 hours. We won't leave the client. I may call my other client and reschedule my regular client and attend to this crisis, immediate crisis, to make sure everything is safe. And the walk-in is not crisis. The clients come on walk-in, and and then we do whatever. It's a single session. When I say walk-in, before COVID, it was walk-in. We are still using the word walk-in, but they call the walk-in counseling phone number, and then there is a service access unit will do a quick screen, put them in the data, and send it to the counselor who is on that day for walk-in. So that's called walk-in clinic. So these are the interventions, crisis intervention, support services we do then and there, and then we do the ongoing counseling for clients. So if I am accepting a due today client, and then I will tell the service access, I ask the class, do you want to be a violence against women counselor client? If the client says yes, then the client will be put on the database of violence against women counselor program, and there will be a counselor assigned as a regular counselor to this client. So that's a transition. So our approaches are trauma-informed. We even Family Service Toronto itself try our best to be a trauma-informed organization. It doesn't matter whether it's only for violence against women or perpetrator. Even if a perpetrator walks in for the partner abuse response program, we make sure it's trauma-informed because they are also traumatized. They have various issues. So we respect everyone. And our Violence Against Women program, we created intersectional feminist approach theory. It's a long one. It's about so many pages. We worked on that for about a year and a half. You can go on our website and then VAW program and see that intersectional feminist approach. That's a framework where we work. So it's an interesting one because we really work, and now City of Toronto even is looking into our feminist approach principles and those theory, which is actually very impressive, and we worked on that for one and a half years. So the trauma-informed approach and our VAW team is in addition to that have this intersectional feminist approach. So what we do, apart from our individual counseling, we do workshops. We do workshops to our own clients. For example, I do workshops on PTSD to my own clients as group. We do self-care groups. So each counselor can talk to our clients and see if they need a group, if they want to be in a group, we create a group and it's closed group. We also open those groups to others. They are not necessarily be our clients. We open to others. So we advertise on our website. We create flyers. We send it to the other organizations. So we do. So now we have a yoga group, which is called a trauma-informed yoga group and body trauma group. We have a counselor who is a yoga certified yoga staff as well. So she's running. With Create Art Institute, recently I and another colleague, we ran a group about expressive art therapy. So Paula was saying about her Muse art group, and then she was distincting between the Muse art, what it is, and then the trauma-informed art therapy. So we hired these people to do the trauma-informed therapy. The reason we are doing more groups now is because of COVID. As you all know, DV has escalated. A lot of people on our organization are on waiting list. We don't want to put them on waiting list for one-on-one. So we opened up groups so we can give them support while they are waiting to get that one-on-one support, so that it's another crisis intervention, it's another support system we created to have these groups on Zoom so that they are getting support while they are waiting. So the workshops we do for other organizations like this, or sometimes other organizations ask us, can you come and do 3 or 4 workshops for us on violence against women or any other topic. And we also do groups within FST. This is something interesting you may ask, because it's 120, 160 staff, different departments. So we have lunch and learn groups, workshops. So I may go to another, like how to work with developmental disability clients. I may go and learn within FST. We learn from each other. So we run workshops within FST as well. And I talked about groups, and then we have peer meetings. We also have peer groups. We have within Violence Against Women team, we have another program called Healthy Families, Healthy Relationship, which runs for new immigrants on Farsi speaking, Tamil, Somali, Arabic, Nigerian speaking. So we have, it's called peer groups and youth group. So that groups we have. And the team meetings are very interesting, because that's for us actually a clinical meeting. However, it's a therapy meeting for us. And with pandemic case, we don't see our staff in person. So we look forward to have these team meetings. That's for us, it's a self-care meeting more than a team meeting. So this is what the Violence Against Women program at Family Service Toronto. During COVID, when COVID started, as DV escalated, we spent hours and hours, one staff took the lead, hours and hours to prepare a resource package. If you go on our website, Violence Against Program, you will see a detailed, I think it's about 12 pages, 13 pages, resource package, where a victim can access all the resources in that package. So you don't have to go all over the place. That resource package gives all the information. Sometimes we also linked the links so the client can open that link and get the services. Everything from shelters to the legal advice, to 911, whatever, employment, education. So it's a long list. We worked as a, she took the lead, but I think we worked about 3 to 4 months to put this and then to make it to the public. So it's a very resourceful resource package. We use that as well, because we don't have all. Sometimes we forget, or we have put a lot of good things there. Even self-care tips we have put there. So whoever needs that, please use that. And that's really a good resource package. Having said that, I would like to say thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to KCA. Thank you to Jennifer and the tech people who are here. Thank you.
Thank you, SATHA. That was a very interesting presentation. So I have a question. During the pandemic, was the Red Door shelter open?
Yes, they were open. Yes, they were, the shelters were open. And they were saying that it is very challenging for them to accommodate, because if it's a 2 people's room, then they have to make it for 1 person because of social distancing. So they were open, however, it was limited number. Also, the other side is women were not ready to go to shelters because of pandemic. So they were calling the shelters to get help. So when they called them, then they needed counseling. So the Red Door actually called us to provide the counseling services or the crisis intervention to them.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's good information. You know, what I get from your presentation is it just sort of completes everything we've done with all the other panelists. And I feel regardless of the background, regardless of where the diaspora is from, there is help available. Mm-hmm. Whether you're from the East or whether you're from the West.
Yes.
But language is the issue. You know, that was my main takeaway, is that it's so reassuring to know that there is help available in the language that one is most comfortable to communicate with. And I hope our audience gets that message loud and clear. Whether they're able to communicate in English or not, they will receive the service that they need.
Yes. We also have Spanish-speaking counselor. She works with seniors, but she said she could do 1 day a week with violence against women who speak Spanish.
That's great. Thank you. That's really good information. And all this information will be on our KCA website, the links, as well as all the crisis lines. Thank you again very much. And we will also present some crisis lines right now for the audience to take note of. So please note, you can go on the KCA site for information. You can also take note of the numbers on the slides to reach out. If you need further help, if you need further information, that's what we are here for. You can contact a local crisis line. The telephone number is here on the slide. Failing all of that, you can always dial 911. For new immigrants, it's not always obvious what the number is, but 911 will take you straight to the police, who will redirect your call as needed. For women experiencing gender-based violence, you can make an anonymous and confidential call. You will be offered crisis counseling, safety planning, emotional support, information referrals. And this Assaulted Women's Helpline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. You can also text the word SAFE, S-A-F-E, to 7233 from your mobile phone. I hope the information is helpful to all our audiences listening in. I'd like to thank all our panelists for the amazing presentation. We'd like to move on to our question and answer, and let's see if we have any questions that have come in. I do have a question, and I'm going to open this up to our panelists. And what they're asking is, if I know someone experiencing violence, but they do not want to reach out for help because they're afraid that the situation they're in will get worse, what's the best advice for me to pass on to them? Who would like to take this question from our panelists? You may have a different take on it, but definitely your input will be appreciated. The question again is, if I know someone experiencing violence, but they don't want to reach out for help because they're afraid that the situation they're in will get worse, what's the best advice for me to pass on to them? SUCHIRA, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, Sanjit, actually, I would probably want to respond to that question, because we do get a lot of community members sometimes calling us with questions like this. So it's not just survivors of family violence or intimate partner violence who would connect with us. We've had people, I think one of the panelists mentioned, I think it was, the whole thing of that sometimes we get calls even from outside Canada, where people have families here and they want to help the family member, but just aren't able to convince them to maybe make a complaint or move out of that situation. So generally, when we get calls like that on our crisis line, the concept is still that you cannot really force somebody to take a step. However, you definitely can reduce their harm as much as possible. So a couple of things that we suggest to people who call us with questions like that, I guess the first thing is that, talk to this individual that is experiencing this situation about their safety, because that kind of, from our perspective, kind of is the first step. When someone is talking about being in an abusive situation and say a family member or a friend is calling us for help, we kind of go over that, do you know anything about the circumstances? Are you comfortable sharing information? And based on whatever they share, we try giving some tips on safety to this individual who then can pass it on to the person who's actually facing the violence. We also remind the caller that, at the end of the day, the decision has to be the person who's experiencing that situation. However, we tell them about various services that are available, which may not necessarily mean reporting the incident, but maybe this person might be open to talking to a counselor or a settlement worker. So it doesn't always have to be that, oh, if I'm in an abusive situation, I have to connect with the police or I have to go down and make a report. I think, like, all my esteemed colleagues here on the panel mentioned that there are multiple community resources available. And I think that's exactly what you need to probably tell the person who's facing it, that, I understand it's difficult, but how about maybe talking to a settlement counselor at a school level if you don't feel comfortable connecting with a community agency. So I think looking at what is available within this person's reach without jeopardizing their position in the situation, because we want to make sure the person is safe, even if they are asking for help. And I think the third thing that we always say is that we give out our number and we say that, what, we are a confidential service. Even if this individual just wants to give us a call and discuss their situation, we are not going to go ahead and report it to anybody. It's confidential service. Maybe just talking to them, we might be able to problem solve around the situation. So I think it all comes back to, again, being client-centered to some extent and respecting the autonomy of the person who's in that situation. Because, like I think was mentioned in many of the presentations, that each and every individual who faces that situation has the resilience to some extent to face what is coming their way. And when they ask for help also, they know what they need the help for. So to believe, I think, from that strength-based approach somewhere, that yes, we are here to help, but we are not going to make decisions on behalf of the person who is in that abusive situation, basically. But that would be my thinking. Like, that's the approach we take at an agency level as well.
Would anybody else, one of our other presenters, also like to tackle that question?
Yeah, I would agree with Suchira. That's what we would do. So, like, instead of escalating the situation at home or putting that woman at more risk, children at more risk, just to listen to that woman, what's happening at home, what is she doing during this time, and what type of help she needs. So those are the things, because she would have prepared. Nowadays, social media, everyone has a cell phone, so they may read something on social media. So probably she may know few things. So you can ask what are the things you know and how you can help. So basically listening and make sure she's safe and everything. Also, when women are in this vulnerable situation, the family and husbands, the husbands would say, oh, if you do this, I'll take the children away. Or so they start threatening all this. It's a controlling behavior. It's threatening. So it's also to talk a little bit of, no, CAs won't jump in and take your children. There are other ways to do this. Just to put some trust that system is there to help. Because when people talk about all these things, they lose trust on the system. So just to build the trust a little bit and give websites of these organizations, so when she is free, she has time, she can go and learn on her own.
And
my clients have told me
that question. And, I'd like to also refer the audience member to our webinar number 1, where one of the presenters there actually, I believe it was Dr. Jill Andrews, who actually mentioned in a very powerful presentation that also not to shame the woman or the person who is actually undergoing the violence, but is choosing not to reach out for help. Right? Because we tend to sort of, why are you suffering? Why are you putting up with it? Why are you not? Right? And that was very powerful. And I would like to refer you to go back and watch that. There's some amazing answers there too about how to not shame the victim simply because they're just in a different place in their life and maybe they're just not ready for various reasons to reach out. Very important for us to be empathetic to that too. Thank you.
Sanjit, can I add something if you don't mind?
Sure, please.
I think sometimes it's also important to understand the psychology behind violence, and when domestic violence is happening in the home, women are most often, if it is a woman victim, that they're isolated. They're isolated. So if they have that one person that is a friend, or the person that they've confided in, how does that person continue to, or, that person continuing to remain involved is quite critical in her ability to access support. So one of the things that I encourage in therapy is, how do you expand on your network or safety networks, right? Because this is critical. When somebody is feeling isolated, they become hopeless. Who is out there to help me? And if I'm speaking from a racialized body, how often do you trust systems to be able to see your plight as one that needs appropriate responses? Because sometimes it's not there, right? And really being able to sort of support the individual with that, but also being cognizant if there are kids involved, and kids may be witnessing what's going on. How do you become protective? Because as a society, we are responsible, or we have an obligation to children in our community. So whether you're a neighbor, and you're hearing things that are that kind of raises a question for you, how can you support them? So you can call and seek help, even consult blindly with CS. So CS is always open for blind consults, right? Or even, you yourself going out to the community centers and speak to somebody, or other, settlement counselors. I think SUCHIRA had mentioned that, speaking to somebody that has maybe works in this field to get the resources yourself. So,
There's been some amazing input there to that question. Now, there's one more question I want to address before we really bring this wonderful webinar to an end. However, I noticed PAOLA also has her hand up. Did you wish to add something to that?
Well, I agree with all my colleagues here. I think that no judgment is such an important element in how survivors are supported. But I also want to acknowledge that there is a very valid reason as why survivors in women that are still in abusive relationships continue there, and is that the system has not been very gentle when we talk about legally like counter charges, or what happens when survivors go to court and ask for child support or access. And we have seen many cases. I know that I was talking here about from the community arts perspective, but I am a support worker myself, so I have witnessed the injustices there. So again, racialized community members, racialized women have actually received all the negative of all those bodies that we are talking about, police, children's aid, the justice system, the legal system that puts women still in a very vulnerable situation when they have to still be in relationships that are abusive because they are fearful of their immigration status, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to repeat all that. I just say that it is very important that all that is true, and that if we remove the judgment, and if we encourage those callers that I'm calling and say, she doesn't want help, because I think there is already a judgment with she doesn't want help. There is many factors and many layers that prevent someone from going for help, including the fact of recognizing that it is not our fault, that
I think really hit the nail on the head with your answer. I could see all the panelists shaking their heads and absolute anonymous support in your answer there. So thank you. One final question, and hopefully I can have a quick answer before we bring this to an end and respect everybody's time. If I can notice someone is experiencing gender-based violence, but they do not see it as violence because they are lacking the information to realize it, or think this type of behavior is normal, how can I tell them what they are going through is actually violence? Now that's a loaded question, but I need a quick answer to that.
I want to start, I would like to start, and it will be
Please.
short. I just want to start by indicating that when we are discussing gender-based violence, we're also discussing violence against trans people, non-binary people, and that there are many elements and culturally elements, you know, the type of societies where we live, where bodies are hypersexualized, where many other aspects occur, where gender and gender identity and gender expression is actually taken as a joke, etc., etc. So violence is very normalized in our bodies and in our minds, and so I think it's a matter of caring for the other, providing information as much as possible, and not as an imposition, but as an offering. And sometimes that offering is through community. It is not like, I think you're in violence and I'm going to give you this. It is come and be part of this community because you are also loved. And in that process, you also meet other survivors that could be the breakthrough, right?
Thank you. Lydia, you have your hand up?
Yeah, no, I simply just wanted to add to that, to say that community is the best place to have those discussions for people that are like that, because when you go there and you meet other people that are going through the same experiences as you, this is a place that you can have the opportunity to really have those conversations about, you know, and then you can bring perspective and talk about that and, you know, what your experiences have been culturally, and you can hear from the other people, because, and then changing that kind of understanding takes, it doesn't take one person speaking to you, but it's coming together and a discussion around culture and implications.
So again, I see all the heads nodding, so I think there's consensus on that thought there. So SUCHIRA, PAOLA, LYDIA, SHIFFO, SATHA, thank you so very much for participating in this webinar, for your valuable input and time. Very much appreciated. To the audience, thank you for tuning in. Keep sending in your questions. We will try and get to them at some point in time. Please forward this webinar to everybody you feel is in need. It will be on the KCA website and on our YouTube and Facebook forum too. Thank you very much again. I would now like to thank KCA, the team behind, our technical team. As we know, many of us would not be able to do a lot of things without their support, for helping put this webinar together, and the board of directors for their support. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Please tune in for the rest of our webinars. If you haven't watched the first one, it's there, it's available, and tune in for the next 3. Coming up in September and October. Once again, have a great evening. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.